Morning, guys, or afternoon, early afternoon. Just a little bit of an update from Spain. We're just prepping one of the properties we look after for some new guests. This is one of the Airbnb rentals we look after. Um, so we're just prepping that up. Just put all the bedding in the washing machine. Just check everything's okay, and start getting it ready for the next person. Um, so I just want to do a bit of an update on things and how they're progressing. The first thing is the Torrebeko services is slowly growing. It is actually showing that it's viable, but it's going to take time. One of the problems I've had, which is more a case of the timing, was actually just getting it moving, getting it circulated, getting people aware of it. But I mean, it's a bit like I ordered some signs from the UK because they're cheaper from the UK. Guess what? 2 months on, still not arrived. Um, but I've ordered some other bits and pieces. I thought, you know what, it's sort of going out the holiday season now, so I'll just wait till everything gets here, then I'll start progressing that further. The internet side's been working well, but it's not enough to be sustainable yet. It will take a bit of time to work to that. I've also been spending a bit of time with Paul Sayers, talking about air conditioning. Paul Sayers does a lot on the car side, not just air conditioning but diagnostics, etc. And he's looking at setting up here in Spain. So we're sort of looking at that to see if we could do something with it as well. Because I'm quite interested in the air conditioning, because quite simply, a lot of the properties here, a lot of the aircon's on its last legs. But also, as Paul quite rightly mentioned, the UK, I mean, it's funny, I was watching a UK TV show yesterday on Channel 5, and the advert from Halfords come on, and it was air conditioning. Now I think, go back 15 years, did anybody I know have air conditioning in the UK? The answer is no. But these days, it's becoming normal. And the thing is, I can see that being progressive. Now, one of the things I've done relating to the air conditioning repairs and installations here is I've had to rely on external contractors a lot, because I need to get some equipment myself. So I'm looking at, now we're coming out of the holiday season, hopping into the UK for a while, generate some income there, and start buying tools and send them over. So gearing up for the air conditioning, but gearing up for other stuff as well. Because one of the problems I've got, a lot of my stuff was when I had that robbery. I don't know if you can use the word robbery, but basically got robbed of all my stuff by family. A lot of my tools and stuff were at my parents' property. So I'm washing my hands of everything there, but it means I need to invest in my tools again. But you live and learn. So that's going to take a bit of time to build up, and I want to get a second vehicle for that as well. One of the things it's worth looking at, if you're looking at getting a van here, there is a odd one where if it's got the rear seat, so it's a 5-seater. So like if you got, say, a combi van, or I think the Corsa van or whatever it is, Vauxhall do one. Well, it's a Vauxhall combi, isn't it? And then you've got the Ford do a small one as well. I can't remember the name on that one, but they're not the size of a Transit or the bigger vans, but they're then classified as a car. And there's some benefits to the ITV, because I don't think it needs done as regular as it does with what's classed as a commercial vehicle, which would be a van. So it's worth looking into that, but also it's more practical in the sense of most of the time you don't need the full space. You're better off with the 5 seats, so you can fold that down when you need it, and when you don't, it's usable. And you find that's quite common here in Spain. A lot of people have those types of vehicles, and it's probably from the tax incentive, but also they use it as a normal car. So that's sort of progressing. The Airbnb stuff's progressing. I've been talking with Gareth around the website stuff as well, so that's another thing we're looking at, because that will happen, but it's just going to take time to get to where we want it to be. I've also been working online. Now, I'll predominantly be doing telemarketing and sales for some US companies. Pay-wise, it's paying more than the locals do. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at about $25 an hour for marketing side. So that's okay, but one of the things I'll tell you if you are doing that is be aware you'll get gaps between contracts, because sometimes the expectation is just crazy. You know, they're thinking they're going to get X, Y, Z, and yet the product is a very niche product, but they're not focusing the actual marketing side on the niche. So, you know, for example, say you were selling something specific to dental treatment, and then their lead generation is based on a county. Well, the problem you've got is 90% of those leads ain't interested. They focus the leads in the wrong direction. So sometimes I'm having to engage with people and say, look, you do realize that you're actually calling people that aren't even interested. They've got no use for that product. What you need to do is actually home it in on specific types of people and businesses that you know will buy it. Part of that is recognizing where your initial sales are coming from and focusing on that. You know, if you start seeing that it's all car dealers, then guess what? Car dealers is what you should be asking for, car dealer leads, and targeting those types of people. But anyway, so I'm doing that at the moment, which is, it's okay. I've got to admit, I'm not a fan of doing it, but it's paying the bills and keeps things ticking over. Looking at a couple of jobs in the UK as well, because after the holiday season, it'll start getting a bit quiet here, and it'd be nice to generate some cash. There's two sides to that. The first one is some of these, they're interesting jobs, but the second part is the money I've generated this year already, I have a lump sum in the bank. If I go back to work, say next month, that lump sum can then be put towards buying a property here. I've got some money coming from elsewhere as well, so getting in a position where we could actually buy our first property in Spain, which would be a nice conclusion to 2019, to actually come out with our first property rental in Spain. And that's another thing I want to bring up. The property rental market here, it's there. You know, there is a market for it. But if you sit and do it, I mean, I want you to do your own analysis on it, because I can't be bothered with people arguing with me whether it's viable, is it not viable, is it the laws are too biased towards the tenant, you need to renovate everything, blah, blah, blah. Not interested, do your own homework. But what I will say is, if you bought a property here in La Mata, you're not going to have a problem renting it out at all. What I do recommend is start with a minimum of 1 bedroom. Don't go studio. Studio can be a bit harder to rent out because they're small. I'd recommend a minimum over 1 bed. I was talking to somebody recently about where he wanted to buy a 1 bed and then rent a studio. Well, the fact is, the rent from the 1 bed would pay for his studio, and he'd have a little bit extra every month, which means he'd probably find his electric bill and water bills paid for out of the other apartment. The reality is, this market isn't really going to change that much over the next 20 years. I mean, I don't know how busy it is today. Let's have a look. Just trying to keep out the sun for a minute. Try not drop my phone. But La Mata is pretty busy. Parking's horrendous at the minute because it's so busy. But there is a demand for it, and we get people emailing saying, have you got a property available, have you got, you know, there's 3 people that have emailed me in the last 4 days wanting to rent here before the end of the month. I mean, that's next week. So the point being is, there is a demand for it. And one of the problems you get is a lot of the properties here are owned by Spanish families that don't rent them out. So you'll see like empty properties, well, it's family owned. They don't really rent them out too much beyond their own family. I think that's something to do with some of the laws, but the laws are more in line with dealing with long-term tenants rather than tourists, because the tourist market is completely different. Long-term market, you'll see, if you're looking at the legislation and the changes in the law, it's very biased towards the tenants over the landlords. But with the holiday rentals, you don't get as much problems, especially if you do something like Airbnb, where you can actually pre-screen a lot of the people coming through, so you know their background, have they rented in places before, all that sort of stuff. You can actually gauge, are they the right tenants for you to rent to. Um, Also talking to the guy that owns the bar, which is down there. Um, Still in the discussions around it because myself, it's too late in the day for me to take it on this year. It wants me to take it over, but at the same time, it's the wrong time of year now. We're coming out of the holiday season. It's going to be very difficult to break even going forward because what should have happened is the start of January, you start all your marketing and everything, get everything running right, get it running smooth, and then by now it should already be sustainable, so it'll carry you through the winter. So it's the wrong time of year for that now, and that's one thing I will say. If you want to set up a business in Spain, is look at your market viability, because like now it's very busy here, but give it another 6 weeks, most of this will be very, very quiet, because most of these are people on holiday. They don't live here. Population's at least half. With the people that live here all year round, is about half of what you're seeing. And that makes a big difference, because the ones that are here all year round obviously ain't spending holiday pay. They're living on fixed incomes a lot of the time. They've got their pension or whatever. But doesn't mean the business ain't viable. It just means that the setup needs to be done earlier in the year, because there's a lot of changes that needs to happen there. But I'm not going into it too much detail because I'm still talking with the owner. But the point being is, location-wise, it's not fantastic, but it's good, because it's not just about the restaurant side. There's a lot of other stuff you can do with it, and using it as a hub. People renting their apartments out where the keys are. They know they can pick the keys up there. Being an Amazon drop-off point, even Wish are doing a drop-off point now. So the point is, there's two things that would actually work here, because there isn't one for La Mata. Even just taking general deliveries and holding them, there's nobody else doing that. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and it's just a case of gonna have to wait now. I mean, I'll see where, because I haven't seen the accounts. I know we'd increased the amount it was turning over, but it's gone back the way it was, because they don't cook. But it's not our business to complain about. But at the same time, I do think it's viable. I do think there's a market for it. I do think it just needs a lot of changes and a lot of marketing. But certainly no reason it shouldn't be a success. It's just that it's all in the timing at the minute. And that's pretty much it, the update for the minute. There's not a lot else happening, except it's hot. It's pretty hot. If you do want to look for this apartment, drop me a message. Sea view over there. It's 4-bedroom. I won't give you a tour around because we've got all the beds and everything stripped out. So because we're doing the clean, ready for the next people coming. But I do recommend La Mata as a place to live. A few people have asked me, would I recommend it? And the answer is yes. Winter months are a bit quiet, but I like quiet. I mean, when you have the business of now, you look forward to it being quiet. In the same way, a lot of people rush around doing all like the air conditioning installs, the repairs, the airport runs, the cleans, the laundry, all the stuff that's associated with services for the tourism industry. Once all that's done, people look forward to it being quieter because they can relax a bit. They've still got a few projects to keep them ticking over, but the reality is they can sit back a little bit. But if you're retired, retired or nomadic or digital nomad or something, La Mata, if you can find a place to rent, it's not too expensive. From a business point of view, renting them out, it's also viable. But it's like tonight, there's another something on at the plaza. We'll be going later. One of the things I will say is because I've been dialing America lately, I've been sleeping late, and I go to sleep about 2:30 in the morning, and I'm up about lunchtime. But it's good for I'm on Spanish time. It's good for things like at the plaza, because when it's 1 o'clock in the morning, it sort of kicks off probably about 11 o'clock, half 11. staying there till 1:30 in the morning. I'm wide awake. Where before I'm just like 10 o'clock, I'm like, I'm getting old, I want to go to bed. So yeah, enjoying that, but also it's cooler. So there's a lot of plus sides. But I love living here. I mean, people complain about I was on my other channel, they're complaining about it's hard to set up businesses here, they tax you to death, blah, blah, blah. Yes, they do. But at the same time, I wouldn't say it's hard to set up a business. It can be painful. You know, documents getting processed, permits delayed, permits cancelled because they changed the government, all this sort of stuff does happen. And it gets back to the sunbeds and some of the restaurants and stuff that have had problems around that. But I would also say that once you're into the rhythm, you can adapt to it. But also bear in mind, there's nothing to stop you working online. There's nothing to stop you working remotely. There's nothing to stop you finding other ways to make an income that doesn't involve even setting up a company in Spain. Yes, you may have to go autonomo and be self-employed, but sometimes you don't even have to do that. Because, for example, say you're working for a UK company, you pay your tax and social security in the UK. Do you need to declare it in Spain? Have a chat with the tax office, because last time I spoke to them, they told me no. So it all depends on your setup and circumstances. But also, if you speak to some of the accountants, you'll hear them say, don't bother setting up. I mean, you're getting advised not to set up in Spain, because once you're in the system, you're in the system. And that's the way even the accountants and lawyers sometimes look at this. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not giving anybody any legal advice at all. I'm just saying about things I've come across. I've got friends here that have been here 18, 20 odd years and still not even registered as a resident. Yet they own properties and all sorts. Why? Because they got advice not to bother setting up. Nobody's looking for them, nobody's chased them. A lot of the things I find in Spain is you've got to go and tell them that you're there. It's a bit like the Padron. You have to go and tell them that you want to be on the Padron. They don't ask who's living at the property. You go down with the Padron. If you only put one person on it and there's 5 living there, don't think anybody would even look. Yeah, it's a little bit different to the UK, but it is what it is. And to be honest, I don't mind it. It's a case of adapting to the environment. One of the things I do find odd is a lot of Brits actually complain about Brits doing what Spanish do. And my view on it is you either adapt to the system or stop moaning about it. You know, if somebody's doing what other people are doing, and it's within the normality, it's not our business. You know, I'm all for live and let live, as long as it's not bothering anybody, hurting anybody, etc. Life's for enjoying. But anyway, nattered on enough. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you guys in La Mata at some point. I've done quite well this year. I've met a few people. Be good to meet some more. If I haven't responded to some of you guys recently, it's because I've been very busy. So please be aware, I'm not ignoring you. I've had somebody message me yesterday, thought I was ignoring her. But the answer was quite simply put a little flag on the email to respond, and then I've been really, really busy. So the point being is, I'm not ignoring anybody. There's nothing wrong with sending me a prompt email anyway, not prompting like very quick, but prompting me to reply to it as well, because sometimes they drop down. I get about 100 emails a day. Anyway, I'll leave this because I've been nattering on a bit long now. Thanks for watching.